Hi again, everybody, and welcome to Week 2 of the Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. This week it is Furman and South Carolina from Williams Brice Stadium in Columbia. Paladins coming off of the 45-10 win in the season opener over Tennessee Tech, and the Gamecocks dropping a 31-17 decision to North Carolina up in Charlotte. I'm Dan Scott, voice of the Paladins. Good to have you with us. Looking forward to getting the entire crew together and bringing you the action on Saturday night from Williams Brice Stadium. We are recording this and releasing it on Friday to give you plenty of time to get ready for the game. The 50th all-time matchup between these teams, the first since 2014. And you got to go all the way back to the 1880s for the very first matchup of these schools. And it happened to be the first game in South Carolina history and their first loss. They were actually known as the Jaguars, pre-Gamecocks. That's how far back this goes. South Carolina leads the all-time series, as you might imagine, and Furman looking forward to trying to add some numbers on the left side of the column this week. It is going to be an intriguing matchup for a number of reasons. The Paladins, there's been a quiet confidence around these parts this week, understanding that anytime you've got an FCS school going up against an FBS school, much less a Power 5 school, there's always the discrepancy and depth and scholarships and those type of things. And South Carolina is a very good football program. We know what Shane Beamer has done in kind of re-energizing the Gamecocks as he is now in his third year at the helm. But here at Furman, in talking with coaches and players this week, there is a belief that the Paladins not only are going to go in and represent themselves well, but this team really believes that it has an opportunity to go in and win the game. And when you start looking at some reasons why they believe that, it's not maybe as far-fetched as you think. So if you'll bear with me for a moment, we'll lay out some scenarios. I mean, the usual things would have to happen, right? Furman would have to play great football, pretty much mistake-free football. Clay Hendricks said in his press conference this week he's challenged his team to be +2 in turnovers. So you'll have to do that. You'll have to make South Carolina make mistakes. You'll have to capitalize on opportunities. You go back to the 35-12 loss at Clemson last year. Furman moved the ball up and down the field. They outgained the Clemson Tigers by a fairly decent margin, but could not capitalize by getting the ball in the end zone. They cannot have that kind of issue on Saturday night in Columbia. They'll have to do a better job of turning yards into points. And then you have to stay in the game late, turn all the pressure around to the home team. Those are kind of the standard things that have to happen. The thing that is perhaps a little off script from a Furman standpoint is there are so many players on this team that have been here, and COVID, the extra year, has played a role in that. The depth that this Furman team has is really the antithesis of what you normally see in one of these FCS versus FBS matchups. And by and large, if you watch these games, you'll see an FCS team that will hang with an FBS opponent for a quarter and a half, maybe even a full half. But then as the second half goes on, the depth just begins to wear down the smaller school, and the bigger school will pull away and usually ends up with a margin of victory that is kind of what everybody expects. Furman's depth, I believe, is going to give them an opportunity to flip that part of the script. Now, as my pastor likes to say, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not sitting here and predicting a Furman victory by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just saying that there are some things in this game and some things within this Furman team, because of the depth, because of the experience, and because of the fact that with the number of guys who are here with the advent of the new hybrid grad program that have been able to hang around, that may not need full scholarship numbers, that you've got more guys on partial scholarships than you've had before, the numbers for an FCS versus an FBS school when you align scholarships are probably closer in this game for Furman than they have ever been before. In the grand scheme of things, is that going to mean anything? I don't know. All I know is there is a quiet confidence about this team moving forward heading into this game. You look at the recent history between Furman and FBS schools going back to 2015. The Paladins haven't won against an FBS school since 2015. You recall John Croft Hollingsworth hitting that school record 55-yard field goal down at UCF and providing the Paladins with that 16-15 win in Orlando. Very nearly shocking Michigan State the next year. And then you had the next close game, 2019, against Georgia State. The Virginia Tech game in 2019 as well. The very next week, the onside kick, the review penalty that still irks people around here. And then, of course, last season, in talking with Justin Roper, the offensive coordinator this week, said that not knowing still a lot about his team, they surprised themselves how well they played in that game. And we talked about moving the ball up and down the field and not being able to capitalize by turning those yards into points. That's the recent look at what Furman has done against FBS opponents going back to 2015. When you start comparing the numbers, again, we're one game in, and Furman played Tennessee Tech. South Carolina played North Carolina, so they are going to be a little skewed, but we will show them to you anyway. Furman scored 45, South Carolina just 17. Paladins only gave up 10 and 291 total yards to Tennessee Tech, and South Carolina gave up 31 to North Carolina. I think the thing that kind of jumped out off of the stat sheet this week in looking at South Carolina's running game is that -2. Now, in the actual running game, they were able to generate a few yards. In fact, the majority of that negative yardage came in the 9 quarterback sacks. In college football, those yards are tacked onto the rushing yards instead of the passing yardage like they are in the NFL. But you still look at the numbers. South Carolina gave up 269 yards passing to the North Carolina Tar Heels. They had 353 yards passing themselves, but they were also in full throw mode in the latter part of that game. And again, they just had virtually no sustainable success running the football. They only converted just over 28% of their third downs and allowed 61.5% third down conversion rate for North Carolina in the game last week, and they were 0 for 4 on fourth down. So just, again, it's one game. It's not really a pattern that has been established yet, but at least gives you a look at what they were able to do, or in some cases not do, in their game against the Tar Heels. The thing that the people around here are looking at, talking about, watching what North Carolina was able to do, the 9 sacks obviously got the attention of defensive coordinator Dwayne Vaughn. South Carolina's starting right tackle, Carson Henry, went down early in that game. He is not going to play, not listed on their depth chart. And in fact, they are concerned that his injury may end up being season-ending. At the very least, he's going to be out a while. So Tyshawn Wanamaker is expected to start, and he will also probably split time there by the guy who started at right guard against North Carolina, Ja'Kai Moore. They are listed as kind of 1 and 2 either or at that tackle spot. They had issues with North Carolina's pass rush. They also had some issues in the secondary, and not so much on the corners, but more in the back end, in the safeties. So it'll be intriguing to see where Justin Roper decides to try to attack. And then I mentioned Dwayne Vaughn, and defensively, can they make South Carolina one-dimensional again? Can they do what North Carolina did, and that is take the run away and make Spencer Rattler, who is obviously a very strong-arm quarterback, he is a very athletic quarterback, but can they make him beat them as a pocket passer? Stand in the pocket, go through his progressions, and make the right read under pressure. I think Furman's going to be able to get pressure on Spencer Rattler. And the key is going to be, are they going to be able to contain him, not let him get outside and keep plays alive with his legs? And then once they contain him, can they finish him off? And will they be able to make plays in the secondary, get off the field on third down, which was an issue early in the ball game against Tennessee Tech. It got better in the second half. Tech ended up 7 out of 17, but I think they missed their last 4 or 5 third down opportunities. At one point, I believe, going off memory here, they were 7 out of 12 or 7 out of 13. So it got a little better in the latter portion of the ball game. It'll be intriguing to see the tack that South Carolina takes. Do they think that because they're supposed to be bigger and stronger, can they just line up and run it right at Furman? Will they try to do that? Will they try to just be more physical than the Paladins? I don't think they can just line up and run right at Furman. I just don't think they can. I think they're going to have to be more multiple. I think they're going to have to do more than just say, we're bigger than you and we're going to try to stuff it down your throat. I might be proved wrong on that, but we'll find out on Saturday night. The defensive side for South Carolina did come up with 2 interceptions. South Carolina did not turn the ball over itself. They did have 2 takeaways. Kawan Banks and O'Donnell Fortune each had a pick of Drake May in that ball game, but that was about the only thing that they did really well on the defensive side of the ball. Look, it's just going to come down, as I said, when you get to where the proverbial rubber meets the road in this game. South Carolina is, warts and all, they're a Power 5 team. They're a very, very good football team. From a Furman standpoint, they're going to have to play a near-perfect football game. They're going to have to take care of the ball. They're going to have to win the turnover margin, and they're going to have to take advantage of scoring opportunities when they get there. If you stay in the game late and you flip all of that pressure on South Carolina, then it'll be intriguing to see how the Gamecocks respond if they are in a tough ball game late against the Paladins. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun evening in Columbia. I also find it quite interesting that, and I'm sure TV played some role in this, but I think it's quite interesting that this game is a 7:30 start instead of your typical FCS-FBS noon start, 2 p.m. start, something like that. And while, again, I think TV probably played some role in it, I also think that if you look at the Gamecock schedule, opening with North Carolina, having Georgia next week, this being the home opener, to keep this from being a complete quote-unquote trap game, probably played a role in this being a 7:30 start at Williams Brice Stadium. We will be on the air with the pregame at 6 p.m., the Pepsi countdown to kickoff, and we'll have the entire band back together. Tom Van Hoy will be with us. He'll be guiding you through the Pepsi countdown to kickoff. Marcus McMorris on the sideline. David Cobb will be there, and we look forward to bringing you the broadcast and telling you the story of the 50th meeting of Furman and South Carolina in Columbia. And then next week, of course, the Paladins head to Kennesaw State. And then after that, it is nothing but Southern Conference play the rest of the way. It's going to be a fun evening. The game is on ESPN Plus Saturday and the SEC Network Plus. So by all means, watch it. We just encourage you to turn the sound down and turn up your radio and listen to our call. It's going to be a fun and I imagine rather wild evening in Columbia at Williams Brice. We look forward to seeing you. Look forward to you tuning in and checking out the broadcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Ingles Furman Radio Network preview of Furman and South Carolina. We'll talk to you from Williams Brice on Saturday. Until then, I'm Dan Scott saying God bless you and so long, everybody.